Hey guys, this is my final presentation and my topic of choice is parental drug use and how it directly affects the child. My name is Jonaci Velde and let's go ahead and get started. So parental drug use is unfortunately something that children all over the world have to deal with every day. Parents may think that what they're doing does not directly affect their child, only them, but in reality it does, and it does in so many ways. During this presentation, I will be discussing some of the many ways a parent using drugs affects their children, why the parents continue to use drugs, how likely it is for the child to get started on drugs themselves, and even some of my personal experience. I hope that my fellow classmates enjoy this presentation and they maybe get some of their own questions answered. So let's go ahead and move on. So this is just drug use in America in general. According to a national survey that was conducted on drug use, about 21.5 million Americans have struggled with some sort of drug abuse in 2014. The ages of this survey range from 12 years old and older. So you can see that the drug use usually starts pretty early, and sometimes the use of drugs can make these adults parents earlier than they had anticipated. So over 7 million Americans struggle with a drug addiction disorder in 2014. It was also said that drug addiction has costed Americans in healthcare over $200 billion from the year of 2007. So just imagine how many hospital visits and insurance claims and things like that people that abuse drugs have taken out because of their hospital visits. This is just on some parental drug use in America. Although finding exact numbers for parents that are using was pretty difficult, there are other things that are found which are very significant. Children that live with parents that use drugs know no sense of structure and often live in poor conditions, like they have no routines. They're back and forth between parents and relatives and other places. There are no types of routine or stability, kind of like I just mentioned, and there often is physical and or mental abuse happening in the home. Children that live in the home are 3 times more likely to get sexually, mentally, and physically abused, and 4 times more likely to be neglected emotionally or physically. So, why do parents continue to use drugs? Although parents know they have a responsibility to carry out, sometimes it's hard for them to accept that. Parents use because they are most likely going through something that the child may never know or understand. That may not be the best excuse for some people to handle, but without condoning their behavior, parents do go through a lot too. Another thing to think about is mental illness. The parent may have an undiagnosed mental illness that they are not wanting to accept or talk about. They may think that using drugs can be a way to make them feel quote unquote normal. Some say, why don't they just quit? They have kids to worry about now. But the first step is admitting that you have a problem, which is one of the hardest steps that parents have. The first step, like I said, is admitting the problem, which is, as I said before, one of the hardest things to do as a parent. In society today, if you are even minorly flawed, you don't parent how the rest of society sees you as, supposed to be parenting, you get torn down. So especially with mental illness. I work at a adult psych unit. So a lot of these adults have mental illnesses in their parents, and they don't want to accept that because they don't want to think that they're different in any other parent, and they don't want to think they're hindering their child because of their mental illness. So that can be especially hard to admit if you also have an addiction along with a mental illness. So this is about how likely it is for a child to start using drugs. So children that have parents who use drugs are more likely to try them themselves. Although it's not always guaranteed, the child is more likely to use drugs because when a parent uses, it causes behavioral issues. And this can result in more risky behavior, acting out, and they'll try alcohol and different drugs because that's what their parent does, and maybe they think, okay, that's how they cope, so maybe that's how I should cope too. Also, a child with an addictive parent may have the addiction reflect back onto them. So they may have a more addictive personality than other kids around them that have parents that don't use drugs. This can be referred to as predisposition, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. There is also a chance that the child of the addicted parent may not follow the footsteps of the parent. It is best to stay strong-willed as you can, depending on your age. Some kids may be younger, some kids may be older. But if you have already started kind of dipping your toe in different types of drugs or alcohol, things like that, try and do your best to quit. Tell someone. Most of the time, people are on your side if they know your situation. So how can we help the parent and the child? First, we have to remember that it is never a child's fault that their parent has a bad habit. Oftentimes, a child blames themselves for the action of the parent, even though the child has nothing to do with it. We can start by determining if the parent wants help, give them the proper resources to find the help, or we could even push them in that direction. Although it is important to help the parent, the child is the most important. If there is any way we can help the child get back on track first, that is what we should focus our attention on. A lot of the times, the parent isn't ready to give up their habits, so it is much easier to focus all attention on the child because ultimately that's the most important person in the situation. So this is just a video about a young man that lives with his mom, and his mom started to be an addict at around the age, I think it said 14 years old. I won't spoil it too much, but you guys can go ahead and click it and watch it. It's a really nice little video to kind of understand everything that I've already kind of put in for you. So to kind of explain the video a little further if you were unclear, you can see that the mother of this young man has struggled with the abuse of drugs for quite some time, even getting her child taken away. You could tell that the young man was not used to having someone there to take care of him, as he states he was used to only Pop-Tarts and Burger King as meals or breakfast or lunch or whatever. The mother talked about her son having issues in school, at home, and respecting her. This is one of the behavioral problems that I was talking about earlier. She also said that he has problems hearing no, which makes sense because he's not used to having somebody being there telling him what he can and can't do. He's been taking care of himself, so why would he want to listen to someone that's never been there for him? The mother did come a long way, though. She had been sober for 5 years, but she stated that every day was a new trial for her, and she was doing her best to fix herself along with her relationship with her son. She said she was just taking it day by day, which is the only thing you can do. You can see that the young man was still hurt, and he had emotions about going back to his mother after her losing custody of him and his younger brother. They don't talk about the younger brother as much, so I'm kind of just focusing on the older young man because they don't show him in the video, so I'm not sure if she had custody of him just yet. So, to add in my personal experience, this picture is, or this side-by-side picture is me and my mom, and it was me when I got married. I lost her in 2005 at 9 years old. I lost her to a heart condition along with heavy drug use. This has probably been the hardest 13 years of my life and the worst thing I will probably ever go through in my life. But I want to show some of these kids that it is possible. You can make it out of the lifestyle your parents chose for you. It was super hard for me, but I still stuck to the promise I made with myself and my mother and my sisters that I will never go down that path and hurt my family, friends, and myself. Although my mom isn't here with me and she's not seeing me go through school and get married and do all these other things, she did teach me a valuable lesson, and that was life is short. You never want to hinder your life for something that is temporary. So that's just one of the biggest things I always remember with this addiction thing. I hope that sharing my story can give another child hope and let them know that it's okay to be hurt, it's okay to be upset, but you can do it. Thank you guys.